Okay, let me make sure I'm online. Okay. Hello, I'm Alex from A.P.Ink. So I'm going to be picking up where I left off last time, which I had started this illustration based off images from Disney's The Little Mermaid, the original animated movie from 1989. So I had used this reference and this reference to compile this image. So I went and looked for other references of the wedding scene to try to get a better view of what was going on, and I found this image, which this makes it look a lot bigger than the original image that I was using with Ariel and Eric. But I've got just the straight image, and then I did one with a grid. So if you want to draw along, that's the regular image. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's wrong with my view here. Okay, the regular image, and then the regular image gridded with a grid. Okay, so obviously in this image you can see the crown on top. I don't have enough room here to make anything that big, but I could potentially make a really kind of narrow crown here. It's gonna look really squashed, but I feel like maybe I should try. So this should be roughly a ½ inch tall. And to somehow um, to try and include this medallion or emblem, whatever, here, which I'm sure that's supposed to be a stylized E for Eric. So this is 4 inches. So I'm gonna Add another 1/4 of an inch here. To include a bobble, I guess, on top of each of the points. See, I'm tempted to actually alternate the height of these, but I think that's just like reminiscent of how a sun flare or whatever would be. Now, the base of this is narrowed compared to the top, so I think to use the outer edge of these flags for like the outer edge of the crown shape on top. Okay, to actually get all of these um, inner swoop to come down to the same point, I'm gonna measure up 1/4 of an inch to actually give me a mark where that should be. And I'm gonna do that in between these upper marks that I put. Let me be a bit more precise here. This is where the in-between points are going to be. So here's a point, here's a point, 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 point. But I think we'll go about there on either side. So that's a rough interpretation of the crown. Okay, because there are so many points here, and the reference, you can make out a center one, two on either side of that, two on either side of that, and then these outer edges. So that's like 7 total, and I've got a lot more than 7 here. But you can make out some in the background. I'm kind of thinking maybe making some of these like background. So I could, as long as I keep this one foreground. So like that. So foreground and then background. It doesn't really get rid of any of the points, but it almost makes it less busy in a way. Okay, so to try and put in the emblem, which this image here, I think this is actually Vanessa and Eric, as opposed to Ariel and Eric. Something about the dress and the fact that you can see that she's holding roses or red flowers, because it's way too blurry to actually see, but here. Here she's holding flowers. This one, obviously, the dog, I think Max here, but I don't know. It's hard to fully see, but maybe with like the puff sleeves also suggests that this could be Vanessa. At the top of these flags, there are more details. If I should add something like that here, okay, so this is just my interpretation of the images, the references that I've been able to find. But I'm thinking, given the space here, that maybe instead of making these points here perfect circles, because I can't make out whatever detail is supposed to be in there anyway, that I might just make it like an oval, or not an oval, but like a half circle. So it would still suggest this connection point here, but it would also kind of echo the, um, I guess, kind of bubbled curtain here. I think a half inch. So that the this decorative element will like swoop down a half inch. I think given the space here, I'm not going to be able to perfectly emulate the potential E here. I think that's right. Okay, so I will try to add wrinkles here to try to really emphasize the kind of souped fabric. Okay, so the kind of bobble points here, which I was going to change these 2 points because from the first reference that this reference here, so here you can't really make it out here because this guy's in the way, but I think There's another kind of finial on this side. It kind of looks ovalish or eggish to me, like the shape of an egg. And I was gonna change it, but I'm thinking with these round shapes on top of the crown that maybe a round finial or decoration here would tie back to these things here. And just to try to push the depth that I'm trying to imply here, I'm going to try to make the ones on these back points slightly smaller than the ones in front. So I need to make this one a little bit bigger. Okay, and then at the top here, between the crown shape and the drape, there's what looks like a twisted or braided detail that I want to try to emulate. And I think I'm going to try to add that detail just in line with the crown. So I'm just adding a kind of almost like a diamond shape. Okay, so moving on to this part here, you can kind of see whatever this plaque is here. So I think the shape is roughly the same. Uh, my only thing is because I added the flag here, which I was, I was going to say that this and this might be too similar, but in this way, this looks more like a shield than a flag, which the one image that I have of it in the background of Eric, you can clearly see the Florida leaf, as opposed to this image, which I feel like if even, and I think I've already said this in a previous stream, if this was a Florida leaf, the shape would be a lot clearer. So I could try. I'm just noticing this. The color blocking here, it's like a reddish color, and then almost like a light blue, gray, or white color. Where here, the color looks a lot more blue. That does make this different than this. Okay, I think to finish detailing, see, I don't think this back panel here goes all the way to the end, because you can see the corner here, so it wouldn't tuck behind the drape here. I think you'd be able to see it. So I'm marking 1/4 of an inch out. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm actually keeping my lines straight here. So I'm just going to measure out the same 1/4 of an inch here. And then to add, it's got a quite thick border around it, so I think a ½ inch. This doesn't look square to me. It's slightly off. It might not look as apparent once I erase the grid. Now, I think the only thing wrong here is that my plaque here is probably a lot more narrow than the reference. I'm gonna try to figure out where exactly the shield should go here. So if it comes down about a ½ inch from the bottom, excuse me, of the drape here, and I gotta make sure that I have enough room to attempt to put whatever this decorative element is here. I think I'll go about a ½ inch from this line here. Still want this to end up looking like a shield. And of course this has a border around it too. I don't know if I should actually shove the bottom of the shield underneath the drape here. Because I don't know what the bottom, top, whatever, this edge here, you can't see what that edge looks like, if it actually is a shield or if it's some other shape. I'm just guessing that it's a shield, but that not all shields are straight shields. Sometimes there's other decorative elements towards the top. So marking in 1/4 of an inch on both sides. Do the same thing here, 1/4 of an inch. Okay, I think I'm gonna bring this point up more. I was gonna use this as the bottom point of the shield, but I think that's gonna stretch out the shield a bit too much. So I'm gonna move it up an inch. I don't know, because the bottom comes to a bit more of a point, which I could split the difference and bring the point here. But I think this might be too shallow. But I think this would be too long. Let's see how it looks. There's a really kind of gentle swoop here. So like that. And then I could bring the top edge up this way, just again so we can't see the top. But then to add that wide border around, see, I feel like a 1/2 inch would narrow the center up too much. A 1/4 inch seems like it wouldn't be wide enough, but we've only got so much space here. So we'll try a 1/4 of an inch. and then mimic that pointed edge at the bottom here. Okay, and then to divide this in quarters, okay, treating this grid line here as potentially the top edge of the shield. So we've got roughly a 3-inch shield here. So 3½ is 1½. So the separation would potentially be here. Let me just make sure that my line is straight. Just to try to get rid of some of the confusion, I'm going to erase some of these grid lines, because this is also gridded. Um, that's not the right term for it, but like this shield, it's like blocked. See, I think there's a fleur-de-lis here. It's just hard to see. I think to try and put in this kind of scroll design, it almost looks like this is up in front of, like, I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but there's like a swoopy scroll here, but it looks like it goes in front of the shield. I don't feel like it would actually do that. But I feel like whatever shape is on this side would be mirrored on this side. I don't know if I'm really going to be able to duplicate this, but we'll see. And there's kind of almost a crown detail here, just here. I don't know if you guys could actually see that, just here. And then there's kind of like a ribbon. Nothing really like the reference, but hopefully it kind of comes across. Okay. I'm gonna go back to this reference here for the Florida leaf shape. So, just to give you guys this reference. I can't zoom in any more than that, but hopefully you guys can kind of see it. I'm gonna try to freehand this. like I need to narrow this up some. Which I was gonna say fleur de lis. I think it has French background, but I think that's actually a given. Because I think fleur de lis is French, like the words themselves. Seeing shapes or things where there aren't necessarily shapes or things. It's almost like a body with arms and feet. I should probably actually look up a reference for the shape. Let me finish this and then I'll look up a reference really quick and see how far off I am. Okay, that's what I can actually make out for the shape. So let's look up fleur de lis. How is it actually spelled? I think I've been saying it wrong. Fleur de lis. Okay, I didn't know that. It looks like it's actually the shape is based off of a flower. So it looks like that flower inspired this shape. So I'm kind of close. But it makes me wonder. Let me grab one of these shapes really quick. Okay, here's the reference again. Okay, wait. Let me use the one that's a bit more clear with it behind Eric. But it looks like here there's a center point with like arms here, and then like feet here. There's a center point, and then a lower half that almost mimics the top half, which is what caused me to draw this shape. But if this is the actual shape, I'm close, but I've got this point here and this point here, these kind of feet. I don't need both of them. I'm not sure what I should do here. I want to be accurate. Or at least as accurate as I can be. Okay, unfortunately, noticing the time, I've run out of time. So I'm going to end this stream here. I will try to find other references for this. And we'll have to continue this again later. Hopefully next time, hopefully I can finish the initial sketch and actually get to the line art. I know these drapes really need some work. I didn't do too much this session, but I think some of the finer details aren't that bad. But yeah, if you'd like to see the progress continue, please make sure that you're following me and that your notifications are turned on so that you're notified for the next time I go live. But other than that, thank you to anybody who watched or watches. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.